Hello everyone, and welcome to the RV Inspection and Care channel. I'm Dwayne and I'm a certified RV inspector. And today we're going to be talking about inverter generators for supplying power to your RV. Now, let me be clear. What I'm talking about is not those construction type generators that you've seen on construction sites. Those are loud, they're obnoxious, and I will guarantee you this, if you bring that to an RV campground site, you're going to make some enemies pretty quickly because people just don't like that kind of noise in a campground. And you won't like it either because it's right on your site. So what we're talking about today instead is smaller inverter generators. Now these inverter generators, they're not only smaller, they're also much quieter and they're fuel efficient. So we're going to get into the subject of how do these kind of inverter generators compare with producing power from solar power instead. And we'll discuss all of that. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of inverter generators. And we'll start out with the number one pro, and that's the cost. Now, why would we say that the cost of these inverter generators is an advantage on their side? Well, I just made a video recently about solar power, and in it I discussed how that if you're going to get a system that will run most things in your RV, it's probably going to cost you about $4,000 to $5,000 with professional installation. It could even cost more. Well, the good news is that an inverter generator can be had that will run everything in your RV, even including air conditioners, for under $1,000. So just make that comparison. Under $1,000 or $4,000 to $5,000. Why, in this case, the cost is a huge advantage for an inverter generator. Now, the second pro is what we just talked about. It can run very high wattage appliances. An air conditioner, the microwave oven, things like this. This is an area where solar power struggles. Solar power isn't really designed for high wattage things, but it's right in the wheelhouse of an inverter generator. So that's a big advantage for it. The third pro is simplicity. You know how tough it is to run a generator? You just connect your RV, you hook it up, and you start the generator. That's it. It's not complicated. And most of these generators will even adjust as they run to the demand that's being placed on them. So very simple to use. The next pro is that they will work in any kind of weather. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be raining, it could be snowing, it could be cloudy, sunny, hot, cold. It doesn't matter. An inverter generator is going to be on the job and keep producing power for you. Now, solar power, on the other hand, struggles with this because when you get into cloudy days, and especially rainy days, you can see the power output drop by almost 75% with solar panels. But an inverter generator will just keep right on going. So that's a big advantage. Finally, it also produces clean power for your electronics. It doesn't matter whether they're sensitive devices or not. All the electronics in your RV will have clean power to work with. So an inverter generator does not put out the kind of power or energy that could be harmful in any way, and that's an advantage as well. Now, those are the pros, but what are the cons of using inverter generators? Because definitely there are cons as well. And let's start with the number one. It's the one that some folks have a really difficult time with, and that is that constant noise that's in the background. Now, as we mentioned earlier, this is not the kind of noise that construction generators are putting out. That's just loud and obnoxious. But the smaller generator will put out some noise along the line of about 55 to maybe a little over 60 decibels. And that's not a lot. In fact, you can hold a conversation standing right next to the generator. But it is in the background and it is constant. So if that's an issue for you, then you shouldn't be getting a generator. There's where solar power really comes in well. It's totally quiet and there's no noise at all. Now, the second con of an inverter generator is its weight. If you're going to buy an inverter generator that will run air conditioning in your RV, it's going to be at least about 100 pounds. And that's a lot. That's not something that you just carry around easily. So, if that's the case, you need to think about that in advance. Now, of course, if you just need a generator to power up the batteries, recharge batteries, and that's all you really need it for, then one of the smaller units will be fine, and they're around 50 pounds. But just be aware that they're not lightweight. The third con is that you got to find some place to store the inverter generator. Some people choose the back of a pickup truck or their tow vehicle. Others use a cargo bay. Wherever you decide to put it, it's going to take up space and it's going to take up weight for cargo carrying capacity. So that's another thing to think about. Another con is that inverter generators are going to need fuel. That's what they run on, and most of them run on gasoline. So you'll need gallons of gasoline, and you're going to need a way to store it safely. After all, gasoline is flammable, so you've got to be careful with that kind of fuel. And this is another consideration when you're using RV inverter generators. And finally, inverter generators have motors, so they're going to need regular maintenance. It's not a lot, it's not very difficult. In fact, most people could probably do the maintenance themselves. But it is maintenance that is required. Once again, this is an area that solar power really shines in, because once you set up the system, it's almost maintenance free and lasts for years and years. But inverter generators are going to need repairs at times, and they also do need regular maintenance. So those are the pros and the cons of using inverter generators. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the practical uses of inverter generators. And let's start with the point that for many years now, Honda and Yamaha have produced some of the finest inverter generators on the market, very high quality machines. But in recent years, they've gotten some competition, so bear that in mind. You don't have to buy Honda and Yamaha anymore. They're very good choices, and I'll put links to them in the description below, but there are other choices that can be had for inverter generators that are very reliable, and all you have to do is look at the many reviews that are very highly in favor of them, and you'll realize that yes, these are quality machines as well. So bear that in mind. Now, some inverter generators can also run on dual fuel. What do we mean by that? Well, they'll run on gasoline or even propane. Well, what a nice thing that is for RVers, because we carry propane, LP gas with us as we go. So many RVers have just used these generators and plugged it into their LP system, and that way they don't have to carry an extra fuel source. What size generator are you going to need for your RV? Well, it depends on what you're going to be doing. If you simply want to recharge batteries, you've gone all day long, you've gone through the night, now the batteries are low, you need to recharge them, that's all you're really looking for, then probably a 2,000 watt inverter will do very well for your needs. But if you're going to want to run air conditioning, then you're going to need at least 3,000 plus watts. So that's a general rule of thumb to go with. Some folks, rather than buying the really big 100-pound inverter generator, have gone a different way because of an interesting method of connecting two inverter generators together. And what I mean is this: most of the inverter generators out there can be connected by a parallel cable. And so if you had, for instance, two 2,000 watt inverters, well, then you're going to double your capacity there if you connect the two together. And the weight is saved if you only need that generator at times for just recharging your batteries, because then you just use one generator. You only use the two when you need air conditioning. So that's another way of using inverter generators to your advantage. Many RVers will use a combination system too for their power needs. In other words, it doesn't have to be all generator or all solar for your RV to produce power. It's just not true. You can use a combination in any way that fits you best and the way that you like to RV camp. What I mean is this: when you go through the day and you go through the night and you've used the power out of the batteries, and they're probably down to around 50% or so by the next morning, you're going to need some real power to get those batteries back up quickly. To do that, an inverter generator is just what you need. It provides quick power right away and will get your batteries right up to around 80% in relatively no time. But once it reaches a certain level, the batteries are going to go to an absorption stage. And what is needed then is trickle charging, not brute force of power into the battery. At that point, an inverter generator is really overkill. So many RVers will turn the generator off and turn on the solar. In fact, you could even use a little portable solar panel system, and that would work well as well. Just trickle charging the batteries through the day by the sun, and that's a great way to finish off the charge on the battery. So it is possible to use the two systems together, and many RVers do it to very good advantage. Well, I hope you enjoyed that information on inverter generators, and I hope it's useful for you. If it is, would you please like this video on YouTube, because that helps us YouTube creators an awful lot. And if you have anything to contribute to this discussion, we would love to hear from you in the comments below. Your experience could be very valuable for others. And finally, we would love to have you join our online family. And all you have to do that is hit that subscribe button. And that way you won't miss any of the videos that I'm putting out on a weekly basis either. Well, that's it for now. Have safe and happy travels, my friends. Until next time.